first we're going to kind of look at what is meditation in general. I always start there because we get a lot of new people. This is probably, for many of you, your first time. You just kind of stumbled across, oh, meditation. I heard that's pretty cool. And so we're going to go into, well, what is meditation? How does it work? Why does it work? How do we do it? So don't worry if this is your first time, right? But after that, we're going to kind of look at a specific topic. And each week here, every Wednesday, we look at a specific topic because there's a lot of things we can use meditation for. So today's topic is all about learning how mindfulness leads to kindness. There's a connection, right, to mindfulness and kindness that we might not be aware of, right? We're actually having a lot of kind thoughts throughout the day. We're just not really aware that they're happening, and that's why we don't act on them sometimes. So our goal for today's class is to start to investigate that a little bit and do some meditation to help us act on these kind of what I'll call instincts of kindness, right? Rosa, hello. Excited to join. Shout out to Eventbrite. Dude, I got to give a shout out to Eventbrite. I've never had events on Eventbrite before I started this channel, and overwhelmingly the vast majority of people come from Eventbrite. So yeah, I have a lot of gratitude towards Eventbrite for sure. I'm glad you found it. Cool. Eva, first time, welcome. This is a great class to come into for the first time. This is a real feel good topic. All right. So we'll start with talking about meditation in general, right? And meditation is kind of analogous to familiarization, right? If we think about pretty much anything we've done in our life, right? Think about all the things that you do that like come super kind of naturally to you now, right? Walking, maybe riding a bike, right? Driving in a car, tying your shoe, right? All these things, they're like, you don't have to really think about them, right? They just kind of come naturally, right? But at some point in your life, that was not the case, right? When you were a little kid, when you were learning how to walk, you didn't have this gorgeous gait as you were, walking down the living room, you're wobbling all over the place, you're falling, right? But through practice and effort, what happened? Your body, your mind became more familiar with walking. Same with driving, right? At first, so many things to think about, right? But now you can just kind of drive, right? Because your body, your mind, they're very familiar with what's required to drive, right? So the same is true for all things that we learn in our life. And this is where meditation can be really helpful, because meditation is a way of familiarizing our mind with something. And really, we're focusing on familiarizing our mind with like positive thoughts, positive feelings, right? Patience, gratitude, kindness, which is our topic today. All these wonderful things, right? Maria, welcome. Toshida, hello. So meditation is really analogous to familiarization, right? And sometimes when we think, familiarizing my mind, that sounds like kind of out there, but we familiarize our body with things all the time, working out. Now we can lift heavier weights because our muscles are more used to it, right? So it's the exact same principle with meditation, right? And, I know you're probably like, I want to relax. That's why I'm here. Well, this is why meditation relaxes you. Meditation isn't like pulling relaxation from the air somewhere, right? It's teaching you to access your kind of natural, like relaxed, peaceful state, right? That peacefulness is in you all the time, and meditation is making you familiar with it enough that you can go there easier and easier, right? Right now, you might not be able to go there on a whim, right? Because you're probably more familiar, your mind is more familiar with thinking about a bunch of different things, being stressed, being worried, being anxious, right? Regretting something that happened earlier, right? So meditation helps us kind of choose where we want our mind to be. And if we want our mind to be in a more relaxed state, well, then we can practice that and become proficient at being familiar going to that relaxed state. And it becomes easier and easier, right? Marina, hi Keith. Hi Eva. My nieces share your name, but without the hyphen. It's always cool to find people with the same names as you. I don't find a lot of Keiths. I don't know. It's not that uncommon a name, but I don't find a lot of Keats. Cool. So the kind of way we're going to start learning how to use meditation to familiarize our mind with all these wonderful things that we want to familiarize our mind with is through a method called single-pointed concentration. And all that means, very fancy, but all that means is focusing on one thing, right? And I talked about familiarity. Our mind is not very familiar with doing this, right? We might think that our mind is familiar with focusing on one thing, but our entire life is pretty much based around multitasking, right? Doing as many things that we can as fast as we can simultaneously, our mind bouncing around all over the place. Multitasking is great for accomplishing worldly tasks, not ideal for doing so in a very relaxed state. Carol, your background changed from blue to sage. It's the endless color change of this wall. I'm trying to find the right color. I think it might be my camera or the lighting it here. So single-pointed concentration is all about making a choice to choose to focus on one thing and then kind of noticing when your mind is trying to focus on not that thing and being able to bring it back, right? Sort of like being in the zone, right? You ever been in the zone, quote unquote, kind of cliche phrase, right? You're working at something super diligently at work, working on a project. What happens? You lose track of time. You don't hear the office noises, right? It's almost like all those distractions that are normally trying to grab your attention, they're gone, right? They start to fade into the background. So single-pointed concentration is all about learning how to do this intentionally, right? Choosing to focus on one thing so exclusively that other things start to fade into the background a little bit, right? And the method that we're going to use here is breathing. We're going to focus on our breath, breathing meditation. You've probably heard of that before. It's pretty common these days, which is really cool. But the method of breathing meditation is we're just going to choose to focus on our breath. I'm going to guide us. And then when you notice your mind's like, hey, why don't you think about that thing coming up later that you're worried about? Or, hey, why don't you think about that thing somebody said to you earlier that upset you? We're going to be like, no, not right now. We're going to go back to focusing on our breath. Not right now, right? Not never. We'll get to you, but when I'm ready, right? Not right now. And we're going to bring our attention back to focusing on our breath. And this method, right, of choosing to focus on our breath, noticing when our attention has drifted and being able to bring it back, that is the practice of meditation. And what happens? Your mind will, over time, become more familiar with obeying your command to focus on one thing. And you're going to start to relax a little bit, right? That's how breathing meditation works as a relaxation tool. And then once our mind is relaxed, well, then we can use it to do all sorts of really cool things, right? We can use it to familiarize ourselves with all sorts of really wonderful things. But step one is to relax our mind, because if our mind is all over the place, it's hard to kind of learn anything, right? Things that normally don't upset us, they upset us when we're really stressed, right? It's a good example of that. So I want to do a breathing meditation right now. Right? It's going to be about 5 minutes. Right? It's not going to be long. Don't worry. A very common misconception of meditation is you need to dedicate, an hours, to get anything out of it. No. You just need some consistency, right? Consistency is way more important than the amount of time per meditation session. Absolutely, right? And we're going to do it right where you are right now. You don't have to go to some special Zen garden or go to a mountaintop. Like wherever you are right now is perfect. If you're sitting down like me, awesome. If you're laying down, that's fine too. Sitting on a cushion, sitting on a floor, it doesn't matter, right? Just be kind of relatively comfortable, right? And you can go ahead and close your eyes, and you're going to follow along with what I'm saying. I'm going to guide us through about a 5-minute breathing meditation, all right? Whenever we start a meditation, first thing we always do is check in with ourselves. How are you feeling right now? Are you happy? Are you sad? Are you tired? Are you energetic? Whatever it is, just notice. Doesn't matter. if it's good or bad. We're just noticing, practicing being aware of what our mind is up to. This is called mindfulness. Moment-to-moment awareness of our thoughts so that we can respond skillfully to them. So just notice how you're feeling in this moment. And having checked in, you can now turn your full attention to your breathing, in and out of your nose, very gently, very naturally. You do not need to take big, deep breaths or forcefully exhale the air. Just breathe normally in and out. And see if you can follow your entire in-breath and your entire out-breath. Breathing in and breathing out very gently, very naturally as you follow the air moving into your nose, resting, and then exiting your nose. And at some point, you may find that your attention is being diverted and is no longer exclusively focused on your breath. Maybe it's thinking about something that happened earlier in the day or something important coming up later. Whenever you notice that this has happened, we can just quietly say, not right now, and go back to focusing on each breath in and out as we begin to relax. Keep breathing in. Keep breathing out. Enjoying sitting here, enjoying being in this moment with your breath. Relaxing. Keep bringing your attention back to breathing whenever it drifts. This process of choosing to focus exclusively on your breath, noticing when your mind is diverting your attention away from your breath and being able to bring your attention back is meditation. You are meditating right now. You are training your mind to relax, to be calm, to be happy, to access its natural, peaceful state. Peacefulness that is always with you, waiting to be tapped into whenever you need it. How wonderful. So just continue breathing in and out, following each breath for a little while longer. Okay, and when you're ready, you can open your eyes. How'd that go? Easy, hard? Everyone has a different experience. If you found that to be difficult, probably shouldn't be too surprised. When's the last time you did this? It's not often that we're kind of choosing to focus on one thing and then purposely trying to bring our attention back to that one thing whenever it drifts, right? So this is going to take time, just like learning to walk, just like learning to drive, just like learning to ride a bike, just like learning to tie your shoe. It's just going to take time. But over time, the more that we do this, the more consistently that we train in meditation, the easier it's going to become to kind of settle into that peaceful state, right? And when we're settling into that peaceful state, our mind is becoming more and more familiar with this. And our mind's going to be like, hey, I kind of like this. That whole business about focusing on a million things, oh, man, I'm glad that's behind me. Right? Let's just focus on one thing, right? So it's just kind of like a training. It's just like training in anything else. Marina, lovely and peaceful. Great. Suzette, it was great. All right. Glad to hear that. So before we move on to our topic, just one thing I always like to mention, or at least most of the times I try to remember, is that consistency is really the most important thing. You do not need to meditate for a long time, right? We're all very busy. No one's asking you to meditate for an hour, right? Meditate for 5 minutes. Is that too much? Okay, fine. How about 2 minutes? How about 1 minute? How about 30 seconds in the morning, right? Any sort of time that you can commit to and do consistently is perfect. Is perfect, right? You don't have to change anything about that. So just, be honest with yourself. What can I commit to realistically? And everyone's going to have a different level of commitment to that, right? But I always like to say that because very common, people are like, I don't know, I can't do it for very long. Well, that's fine. You don't have to. Okay. Maria, it was hard. I can hear neighbors next to me and above me, my son too in his room, but he gets a pass. All right, that's nice. So, Maria, I'm really glad that you brought that up, right? So another thing that we have to kind of deal with when we're learning to meditate is outside distractions, right? Now, our instinct is to kind of find a spot where there are no outside distractions, right? But, as you probably very well know, and we all very well know, life is not really kind of made for those kind of non-distraction settings, right? And so the goal with meditation isn't to like retreat to the lakeside where nobody is and be able to like relax for a little while. No, it's actually to be able to use this in your normal setting, right? So yeah, when you're first starting, it might be a little distracting. With the neighbors. I used to live in an apartment in New York and I'd meditate there all the time. I'd hear crazy stuff all the time, right? But it's actually really good practice, right? And the more you practice this, the more you begin to become familiar with plugging in, choosing to focus on your breath. Those other things are going to start to fade away a little bit, even just momentarily. Like you're in, like when if you've ever been in the zone, right? So I use that example. They're going to start to fade away and you're going to be like, oh, I didn't notice them. Then you'll probably notice them again. But you did it, right? So don't worry about that just right now. You just sitting down and putting effort into this is exactly where you should be, right? Trust me, I could totally relate. I'm having flashbacks to my time in my Queens apartment in New York. That's as noisy as it gets. But it's empowering if you feel like you can do that, right? Okay. So if you have any other questions on kind of general meditation or breathing meditation, just ask me. Even if it's not what I'm talking about currently, that's fine. Just ask me. But I'm going to kind of move on to our topic today, which is all about the relationship between mindfulness and kindness. And really the thing that we're kind of going to hone in on today is this idea of natural kindness. Do you find kindness comes naturally to you? For most of us, probably not. It takes effort, right? We're not just like, boom, kind, right? Sometimes it takes effort, right? Whereas, this is actually a good example, right? So when we're having a great day, we're walking down the street and somebody says something to us that we don't like. Boom, angry, instantaneously angry, right? Like, oh, how could you say that to me? You ruined my day, right? Anger, we're very familiar with. So it comes naturally. It comes easy, right? Patience, kindness. These are things that don't always come easy to us because we got to practice them more, right? And that's what today is all about, kind of recognizing some of our instincts to be kind and acting on them, right? Or practicing them, really, right? Let me catch up. Eva Marie made it a bit easier when you said follow your breath. Good. Yeah. So on this channel, we do a lot of different types of breathing meditations. Everyone's going to connect with something different. So if you were able to really follow your breath kind of in and out, perfect. Just go with that. Stick with that, you know? Kavitha, I think I did when I was younger, but as I get older, it does take effort. That's very insightful. Very insightful. There's a lot of we can learn about thinking about how we were when we were a kid versus how we were when we are an adult. Very interesting. I do a class on that specifically. Maybe I'll do that coming up, because it's really cool to think about that. We can learn a lot. Most times it's easy. That's great. Everyone's going to have a different kind of natural inclination to it, right? Oh, Maria, yes, but if betrayed. Right. So it's easy to be kind when we're in a great mood, right? But what if somebody did something we don't like? It's harder. It's a lot harder to go to that kind of place of patience and kindness, right? So even if you're saying, yeah, it is kind of takes some effort. It's not super easy for me all the time. The good news is that everyone, you're all having these kind of flashes of kindness all day long. These, I'll call them like instincts of kindness, right? We have no shortage of these kind of thoughts of kindness, these flashes of kindness. We just don't always act on them, right? Right. I teach pre-K and those kiddos are kind. Yeah. Oh, man, you can learn so much from kids. Totally different, right? Talk about being focused on something intently. I mean, you get a small child a block of wood, it's like the coolest thing ever because they're so plugged into it. You give me a block of wood, I'm like, what do you want me to do with this thing? Right? Marina, I'm naturally kind, but if I get tired or stressed out, watch out. Right? Yeah. Well, again, right? So it's like if we're in a good mood, maybe it's easier, right? If we're stressed, maybe not, right? So regardless of where you fall on that, the good news is you are having these instincts of kindness all day long. We're just not really noticing them and acting on them all the time, right? So what is this? What is an instinct of kindness, right? What am I talking about? It's a spontaneous mental thought of doing something kind. So maybe you're walking down the street and you see somebody who is presumably homeless and they're, asking for some assistance, and you have this kind of flash of, I should help, right? Whether that's give them money or chat with them or whatever, like I should help. Right? Or maybe you see somebody, you're walking down the street again, I don't know, you're going for a walk, and you see somebody and they're crying. They're on a bench crying. And you're like, oh, I hope they're okay. Wonder what's wrong, right? This instinct to be compassionate for them, right? Or have you ever had like, oh yeah, I haven't called Betsy in a while. I wonder how she's doing, like a friend or family member you haven't called in a while, right? The wish to check in on somebody, like it's like this kind of flash of kindness, a flash of a kind thought, right? These happen all the time, all day long. These spontaneous mental acts of kindness, and these are really important because they are the catalyst for physical acts of kindness, right? Putting kindness into action, right? So this naturally leads into a really interesting discussion that is a pretty big pillar of meditation, and that's recognizing the power of mental actions and the difference between mental actions and physical actions, right? So for all physical actions, speaking, walking, raising your hand, right? There is necessarily a mental action that comes before it, right? I can't raise my hand without the very fast and almost unnoticeable thought, raise your hand. Without a mental action, I would just be like, I don't even know if my eyes would be open. I don't know. Is there a mental action that's telling me to open my eyes? Probably, right? So even acts of kindness, right? So giving a gift, hugging somebody, calling a friend, all of those are necessarily preceded by a mental act saying, give, hug, call. Without that kind of mental action, there's no way you're calling, right? You couldn't even formulate the concept of calling. So mental actions are actually really important. And we're having them all day long. And very often they're like very quick, right? And so we want to catch them when they show themselves and try to stay with them for a little bit and act on them, right? So if we think about acts of kindness, how often do we perform physical acts of kindness for other people during the day? Probably not that much. Janelle, you're late. Don't worry about it. You can watch this. This will be on YouTube tomorrow. Go watch it later. Probably not that often, right? But how often do you think you're having these kind of like thoughts of doing something kind? It's way more than you think. Guaranteed, right? Guaranteed. It's way more than you're actually realizing, right? So what we want to do is kind of make sure we're noticing these and then putting them into action, right? There's a little room for improvement for us. Now, the good news is you're a kind person. Like, you are having these kind thoughts. There's no shortage of kindness in you. It's just practicing being aware that they're happening. That way you can ensure that you move on them, right? Cool. Maybe 15 a day. That's a good number. So how do we do this, right? Does this all make sense first of all? Hopefully. So we're going to talk about, like, how do we do this? How do we make sure we're turning thoughts of kindness into actions, right? And the first and probably most important thing we need to start to cultivate is mindfulness, right? And you remember, we talked about mindfulness a little bit during our earlier meditation. Mindfulness is being aware of our thoughts moment to moment. Why? So we can skillfully respond to them. Okay. So we need to practice recognizing that we're having these mental thoughts of kindness, these kind of sparks of kindness in our mind, right? We need to become aware that they're there. If we're not aware that they're there, we can't do anything about them, or can't do anything about them reliably, right? So, somehow I do this all the time, right? I'm like, oh man, I should call so-and-so. And then I like think about my work, it's gone. I'm not thinking about them anymore, right? To the person who receives one random act of kindness will never forget that act, even if we do. Oh, beautiful. I love that. Yeah. There's a lot to be learned there. Like, small acts of kindness go a long way. That's another, maybe I'll fold the next class into that. That's a good one. Great one, Ellen. So we're not always aware that these kind of thoughts are happening, right? They kind of are so fleeting that they're there and then they're gone. And then we're on to whatever our mind wants to think about, right? So we got to start to practice catching them. And a good way to start practicing mindfulness is to set a mindfulness alarm on your phone. And when that thing goes off, just check in. Be like, how am I doing right now? What am I thinking about, right? This is a good way of getting used to being more present, being more in the moment, checking in with what your mind is up to, right? So that's a good little tip there. And then, another part of training in mindfulness to help being more kind, or recognizing the kindness that you're already having, rather, is to become aware when we're talking ourselves out of an act of kindness. Oof, we do this all the time. At least I do. So let's say you're walking down the street and you pass by a person who's presumably homeless and they're asking for some assistance, and you have that instinct of kindness. Help, right? I should help them. And then what happens? You start to think a little bit. You're like, what are they going to use this for? All right? Pretty common thing sometimes people say when they see somebody asking for that. What are you going to use this for, right? Or like, how do I know they're going to use this for what they say or whatever, right? That. So we're kind of like starting to justify why we shouldn't do it. Right? You do a lot. Yeah. We all do. So we start to justify why we're not doing it. Calling a friend is a really good example, right? So let's say, oh, I haven't talked to Betsy in a while. I should call her. Boom, instinct of kindness, right? And then what happens? When was the last time Betsy called me? She never calls me, right? And then I'll be like, Betsy loves to talk. If I call her now, I'll probably be on the phone too long. Then I'll get behind on all the things that I need to do. I got too much work. I'll do it later, right? So we have this spark of kindness, call our friend Betsy, and then we start to justify why we shouldn't do it. And it happens so fast, right? And our mind gets down that path, and before we know it, we're not doing it, right? Maria, I have recycling in my trunk for those moments, but I will buy a burger or sandwiches. Yeah, that's really nice. That's really a nice thing to do. So capitalizing on those moments is really important. I actually have a very this happens all the time, but there's kind of a moment that really stuck out to me that happened personally. I was in traffic on a pretty mean road, and I had just gotten breakfast. It was sitting next to me. I was going somewhere in my car, and I saw somebody on the side of the street with a sign that anything will help, right? And I'm like, whoa, I should give them this food, right? I just bought, right? I can afford to get other food. Maybe they can't. And then, what happened almost immediately is I started to be like, whoa, there's a lot of cars around. Maybe they would be mad if I was holding up traffic, right? Or, will he see me if I wave my hand out the window? And before I know it, the light turns green and I've missed my opportunity, right? So sometimes we're justifying why we shouldn't do it. Sometimes we wait too long and the moment passes, right? Or other times we distract ourselves, right? Like calling a friend, we start be like, oh no, I got so much to do. And we start to think about all those things we have to do, right? We're distracting ourselves from this kind of instinct of kindness. Or we exaggerate the ramifications. Oh, if I'm on the phone with Betsy, it's going to take forever. No, it's not. And you could very easily be like, hey, I don't have that much time to talk, but I was just thinking about you and wanted to check in, right? So paying attention to what our mind is doing, and specifically when we find that our mind is trying to talk ourselves out of this kind of thought of kindness, is super important. It's the first step to being able to put these into action, right? Kavitha, yes, that happens to me all the time. It's almost like people have to meet some requirement before I can show kindness sometimes. Yeah, Kavitha, so that's a really insightful thing. Kavitha, you have such great insight into how your own mind works. I love all your comments. So we have this kind of checklist. I just flicked my little hair. We have this kind of checklist that we start to go over, right? Are they going to do with it what they say? Do they do this for me? All these things, right? That we kind of go through almost subconsciously to determine if we're going to act or not. Marina, it starts with self-kindness. Yeah, so this, even though we're talking a lot about doing this to others, this applies to yourself. You have thoughts of kindness, sparks of kindness to yourself all the time, right? You just don't notice them, or you talk yourselves out of it. Let's say you're working on a project and it's not going well, right? And then sometimes we're like, it's okay. I'll get there, right? And then we're like, no. If I don't get this done, then I'm going to get in trouble, right? So we had this spark of hey, it's okay. We'll get there, right? And then we talk ourselves out of it. So yeah, this totally can be applied to self-kindness. And yeah, there's a lot to be said for working on yourself, so that way you can be more available to others. Absolutely. Brilliant. Ellen, Keith, we're only responsible for our own actions, not anyone else's actions. When I show kindness to someone, I feel so good. Yeah. Okay. That is super important to notice, right? Generally, when we do something kind and genuinely kind, not begrudgingly kind, oh, I'll go mow my neighbor's lawn. We do something generally kind, we feel good, right? We feel good. It feels good, to be kind. And so being kind to others also benefits you, right? Because you feel good, you're going to be in a good mood, right? That's cool. Let's do that, right? So that's a really important thing to notice, that it's kind of a symbiotic relationship, two-way street? I don't know. It works both ways there. So when we're kind to others, we start to benefit from that kindness, right? And vice versa too. Really, really good. Awesome. Okay, so practicing mindfulness, right? Whether it's setting an alarm or just kind of taking some time to notice, right? And the goal of practicing mindfulness is really to stay in the moment, right? Stay present. Probably hear that all the time. What does that mean? Stay present, stay present. We want to stay with this moment of kindness, right? We often drift. So let's go back to the example of we're walking down the street and we see somebody on the side of the street. They are asking for assistance, and we have the thought, help, right? And then we start to say, like we talked about before, what are they going to use this for? Okay, interesting. Let's analyze that. What are they going to use this for? Where is our mind? It's in the future. It's thinking about what they're going to do with this, something that hasn't happened yet, something in the future, right? Our mind has left the present moment and is now dwelling in the future, right? Or calling our friend, poor Betsy. Sorry if anyone's name's Betsy, I'm picking on you. So I should call Betsy, right? Instinctive kindness. Then we're like, they never call me. Oh, okay, let's analyze that. Where's our mind when we're thinking, they never call me? The past, right? They haven't called me in months. It's been a year, right? Our mind is no longer in the present moment. It's in the past. No. Or I'll be on the phone too long with Betsy if I chat with her, right? Where's our mind? In the future, we're thinking about how long the conversation that hasn't taken place is going to take place, right? Or I have so much work to do, again, future. So this is super important to notice, right? And it's the same concept as breathing meditation, right? What were we doing with breathing meditation? We're saying, okay, I'm going to focus on my breath. And then when my mind tries to go into the past, something that happened earlier, or the future, something that happened late, is coming up later, I'm going to just notice that and be like, nope, not right now. Going back to breathing, going back to being present with my breath, right? So we're practicing this technique of mindfulness when we're doing breathing meditation. And so when we can translate this to acts of kindness, right? So we want to be aware when we're having the kind of like spark thought of kindness, right? And then when our mind starts to go into the past or the future, talking ourselves out of it, we're going to be like, no, not right now. Let me go back to being in the present moment and do it, right? So it's the same thing, right? This is also meditation, right? All meditation is choosing to focus on something, making a choice to focus on one thing and being able to bring your attention back to that one thing when it gets distracted, right? And so this is kind of a meditation on kindness in a way, right? And what's going to happen is just like with breathing meditation, where it becomes easier for you to stay with your breath and relax, it's going to become easier for you to stay in this kindness moment. And it's going to become more natural for you to act on it. And like Ellen was saying, it can be contagious and like can benefit so many people just by you practicing this technique, right? Marina, a woman called Bernadette Russell wrote a book about how she did an act of kindness every day for a year. It's called The Little Book of Kindness. It transformed her life. Awesome recommendation. I'm definitely going to check that out. So when I started meditation a very long time ago, it's like over 10 years, I was more into the kind of like relaxing stuff. And then I will say like the practices on gratitude and kindness, those have absolutely changed me for the better, right? So I totally believe that doing something like that has changed her. And why, right? Why did doing that every day for a year change her? What did we talk about earlier? Consistency to train our mind, consistently to become familiar with something. So Bernadette made a choice. I'm going to do an act of kindness every day for a year, and did it so much did it so consistently that her mind just started to naturally go there. That's why her life is transformed, right? Because now her mind is naturally going to doing kind things, whereas before she had to trained in it, right? Marina, also a psychologist called Dr. David Hamilton wrote a book of the same name talking about scientific benefits. Really cool. Yeah, there's a lot of great info out there. Thank you for sharing. Sharing that information was your act of kindness. Awesome. Thank you. That's great. It's a good thing you acted on it, right? Great example. Maybe you're like, hey, I read this really good book that relates to this. And then you're like, I don't want to type it in the chat, right? Yeah. You're like, no, I'm doing this. Awesome. You really put this lesson to work quick. Okay, so I'd like to do just a short meditation now to just kind of get into this kindness, acting on kindness mode. And really the goal of this meditation is going to be pretty similar to the last one, but we're going to add on a little thing at the end. And the thing we're going to add on is just simply kind of recognizing that this kindness is within us and that we don't have to go out there and try to be a more kind person, right? You're kind. We just have to practice noticing when we're having these kind of instincts of kindness. Cool? Does that make sense? Any questions before we do this meditation? It'll probably be similar in time. Maybe 7. It'll be exactly 7 minutes. I don't know if that's true. Cool. Okay. If any questions pop up, fire them away. I'll get to them after the meditation. Okay. So if you were not comfortable in the previous meditation, great time to change. So find a new chair, put a cushion on your chair, right? Make sure that you're nice and comfy. And you can go ahead and close your eyes once again and follow along with what I'm saying. I'm going to guide us through some breathing meditation and then just a short exploration or contemplation, officially call it, on acting on our instincts of kindness. Okay? All right. Let's check in with ourselves one more time. How are you feeling now? Different than before? The same? Whatever it is, we're just practicing noticing what our mind is up to. We're practicing mindfulness, and we now know how important this is. Having checked in, you can once again turn your full attention to your breath. Make a choice right now that for the next 5 minutes, you are going to focus single-pointedly on your breath. Breathing in and out very gently, very naturally. Following each breath in, following the air as it enters your nose. And then following the air as it exits your nose. Allowing yourself to relax with your breath as you breathe in and out, very gently and very naturally. So many times during the day, our mind tries to pull us in one direction or the other. If you notice that this is happening while you're trying to meditate, just gently guide your attention back to breathing. We can say, not right now, and then go back to breathing. Go back to our promise that we made to ourselves to focus on each breath in and each breath out. As we begin to relax even more into our breath, being fully present with each breath in and out. Totally immersed in our breath. When we do this, when we focus single-pointedly on our breath, we may start to notice some things about breathing that we hadn't noticed before, some interesting sensations perhaps. Maybe you are starting to notice how the air feels cool temperature-wise each time you breathe in. How interesting. And how that same air feels warmer each time you breathe out. How interesting. Maybe you're noticing your shoulders rising with each in-breath and then falling with each out-breath. Your chest expanding, contracting, your whole body being an active participant in each breath in and out, each natural and gentle breath. Being fully present with something allows you to find some subtle joys in that activity. You're starting to enjoy breathing. How wonderful. How wonderful that you are able to learn how to enjoy something as simple as breathing in and out, very gently, very naturally. So having spent some time relaxing, we can now choose to use our relaxed mind to investigate something, to look at something in order to become familiar with it. Today we're going to look at how we have natural instincts of kindness. So just follow along with what I'm saying. Just sit with it. All day long, your mind is having sparks of thoughts. And very often, these sparks of thoughts are kind. Whether it's calling somebody that you haven't in a long time, seeing somebody who dropped something and having the thought to help them pick it up. So many times during the day, each and every day, we are having these sparks, these very quick flashes of kind thoughts. You could say that kindness is naturally occurring in your mind all day long. How wonderful. You do not need to go and be a kinder person. You are kind. All you need to do is practice being mindful of what your mind is doing, so that way you can notice these sparks of kindness. Notice if you're trying to talk yourself out of them for the purpose of transforming your naturally occurring kind thoughts into naturally occurring kind actions. How wonderful would that be? If being kind, compassionate, helping other people, and even helping ourselves, positive self-talk, how wonderful would it be if all of those things came as naturally to us as reading or walking? this is a very doable thing. It's a very achievable goal. All it requires is you becoming familiar with recognizing your natural tendencies of kindness and then acting on them. What a great benefit to everyone that would be, including yourself. So make a promise to yourself here today that you are going to make a point to notice when your mind is having these thoughts of kindness and being appreciative that you're having them and paying that forward a little bit by putting them into action. Okay, and when you're ready, you can relax, open your eyes. So that was a breathing meditation, and then we kind of followed it up with what would formally be called a contemplation. And all contemplation is just thinking. We're just thinking, but we're thinking clear-headedly, right? That's the important thing, is if we're really stressed out and our mind's anxious and all over the place, it's going to be hard for us to focus on something like that, right? But if we spend some time to relax ourselves a little bit, well, okay, now we can kind of like dive into this and really soak up this information and see, is that something that I want to practice? Is that something that's going to benefit me and other people, right? So hopefully you found that to be cool. The takeaways for this class are really to know that you are a person who has natural instincts of kindness, right? They're naturally occurring to you, in you, all day long, right? And you want to start to recognize that they're happening, right? And staying in that kindness moment, just like we were when we're doing breathing meditation, bringing our attention back. When we notice that we're having this kind thought and our mind drifts, we're going to bring it back to that kind moment, right? We're going to bask in that kind moment, right? So much that our mind naturally wants to go there. Cool? Janelle, I needed that after moving the couch. Oh, man. Moving furniture is tough. Movers work hard. That's for sure. So hopefully you found this to be helpful. Kavitha, thank you so much. I think after gratitude, this has been my favorite. Oh, Kavitha, that's wonderful. Yeah, these are very closely aligned. Kavitha's talking about, I think it was last week we did our class on gratitude, which is my favorite one. But this is a natural extension of that, right? Putting kind of that gratitude into practice a little bit. Yeah, this is a really good one. It feels good. It feels good. So thank you for being here. If you did enjoy this, or you found it thought-provoking or interesting or relaxing or any of those wonderful things, come back. We do this every week. Every week we talk about something new. With the exception of next week, which I will not be here. There will be no live stream next week because I am very excited to be going and visiting my family after a very, very long time. So I'm going to be going to New York and spending a week with them. So I won't be here next Wednesday, but I will be back the Wednesday after, and we'll do a class then. So come for that. And maybe subscribe to the YouTube channel, right? So all these videos, they're available. You can watch this one that we just did and all the ones we've done previously on my YouTube channel. And subscribing is helpful to me. It lets YouTube know that people are interested in this. I'm getting close to 1,000 subscribers. That's awesome. It's a pretty big milestone for a YouTuber. And you also get notified when I'm going live, which is great because, we're all busy. You're not going to remember every Wednesday that it's meditation time, but you're getting a little alert on your phone, a little forced mindfulness. So some of the benefits, right? And if you are like super into this, you're like, oh, meditation is really cool. I'd like to kind of go a little deeper with it. I teach one-on-one classes. I work with a lot of people who have been chatting here one-on-one, and it's great. We can focus on something that's super particular to the reasons why you want to get into meditation, whether it's anxiety or whether it's sadness or wanting to have more gratitude or just feeling stressed. We can really dive into something that's particular to you. So if that is interesting to you, just email me. I'll put my email in the chat. It's keith@meditationbreaks.com. Spelled it right. Just email me. We'll find a time that works. I do it all over Zoom. It's super laid back, super low key. So hopefully you'll enjoy that if that's something that's interesting to you. I got to catch up. A lot going on here. Marina, have a wonderful trip. You deserve it. Thank you. I'm super excited to go. It's been a very long time, as it has been for, I think, a lot of people. So I'm excited to be able to do that. I'm fortunate enough to be able to do that. Thank you. I am going to have a great time. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. You guys are so kind. You guys are the best. This is such a good little community we got going on here, right? Carmen, thank you. Maria, I smashed that bell. All right, thank you. Yeah, Maria, so this channel has been around for a long time. I mean, I guess relative to what I think is a long time, is like over a year or so now, maybe more, a year and a half. There's a lot on there. So like, you're like, I could really kind of use something to help when I'm having some anxious thoughts. Like it's probably on there. You go check out some of the old vids. Crystal, what city in New York? My family lives on Long Island. I lived in Queens for a very long time, so I'll be kind of bouncing around between those. Syracuse is a little more my speed, a little more up there. The city's a little too fast for me. Eva, thank you. Subscribed and thank you for subscribing. I really do appreciate that. And you enjoyed it, and we'll be back. Awesome. That's exactly what I want to hear. Keep it, just try to practice a little bit each day, something that's manageable for you, and you're going to start to see some really great results. Moon Maiden, what a name. Awesome. Thank you. Enjoy your time with family. Thank you. I will. Really appreciate all the well wishes. You guys are awesome. Ellen, thank you for subscribing. Thank you everyone for all your support. It's honestly been awesome to see this channel grow. I can't believe that we're getting close to 1,000 subscribers. I honestly didn't think that would happen in this amount of time. And that's all because of you guys and your support and, getting the word out and enjoying learning something new. So thank you for taking time out of your busy day to learn something new. I love teaching. All right. Take care. Good luck acting on those instincts of kindness. And I will see you all in 2 weeks. All right. Take care.